Hi, I'm Walker Line with TXPS Media. I'm here with I forget your official title, but the head of TAPPS, basically, Mr. Bunselmeyer. Firstly, we're wrapping up, as you see around us, that the people are kind of breaking down, and we're finalizing the last few hours of TAPPSCon. How's it been for you and TAPPS in general?
You know, it's been great. We had the new AD training, so 75 people showed up to find out a little bit about their job and their school and TAPPS, which is good.
Yep.
I think the numbers are good, but what's more important to me is the collegial atmosphere.
Yeah.
If you think right when we came back out of COVID, everybody was still a little standoffish and had a mask.
Yeah.
That does not lend itself very well to good, fun communication.
Right.
But I think that the folks that are here are excited. I think we're happy with where we're headed. There will be new things that we don't even know about yet. But
Right.
One of the things that I think makes TAPPS really unique is that with 245 schools, we can pivot quickly.
Right.
But every voice is heard.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing.
1,000%. And just try to be in media team. I know one of the bigger things y'all have really talked about this couple of days is the TMS system that y'all kind of you did last year, but you're really going in on it this year. Do you want to explain a little bit more about it and how it's impacting schools right now?
So one of the things that we realized 15 years ago was we needed a software IT method of establishing eligibility for coaches and students.
Right.
Even before some of the bigger giants, the Max Preps and the others got into the scoring and the standing, whatever, we were keeping those records, but we were keeping it on a PDF and uploading it to a Dreamweaver file and whatever.
Yeah.
Not the best way to do a website.
Right.
So TMS will become an app for fans, y'all, same thing,
sick.
Where you can follow the scores, the standings, the brackets. It's where we're going to score our tennis tournaments. It's where we're going to score some of our other things. So meet management means that I can have a staff of 10 and not a staff of 50.
Which is huge.
And we love Google, but we need to move away from Google and have our own management system.
Absolutely. So I think that's going to be awesome. And I know a lot of us are going to be checking scores and stuff like that on Friday night, so it's going to be a lot of fun. You've wrapped up all the season. What was kind of the highlights sports-wise from this past year that you enjoyed watching?
I'm a track guy. And I'm going to tell you, the state track meet was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Had a 2-miler from Waco running 8:55, and he was clicking. We saw some of the best hurdles we've seen in years. We had some great pole vault competition. The height may not have been where it might have been, but the competition to get there.
Right.
I love the camaraderie. Baseball, softball, phenomenal. Back at UTA went really well. Football was great.
It was good games.
It was some good games.
The Holy Cross DC game was, it was unbelievable.
That was pound for pound, punch for punch.
Yeah.
But then you flip back and you look at volleyball. We had the #1 player in the nation for Prestonwood and Miss Spears.
Unbelievable.
Basketball, we saw some people because of alignment change. We saw some matchups maybe we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
So I was very encouraged there.
That's a good point, yeah.
I think the whole season went well. I mean, the biggest thing for me is to also send that shout out, even though we're talking sports, to the cheer and the dance and the whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had more cheer and dance squads than we'd ever had before.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat to see those young men and young women putting forth the same effort, and getting support from their teammates.
Oh, for sure. Shout out to Waverly Wesser, former intern at Bradley Christian, who won the state championship this past year for cheer. So shout out to her. I want to talk. One question I just thought about while you were talking was kind of the realignment. I know that's coming up this upcoming fall. How important is that for y'all? I mean, of course it's important, but what kind of plays into that from a guy who just sees, okay, my school's now here, there? Kind of explain that a little bit from behind the scenes.
So the biggest thing is enrollment is an average from this last year and this coming year.
Okay.
So if your enrollment stays at 200, then that 200 is going to stay the same across the board.
Right.
But if you're a school that grew from 100 to 180,
right.
Well, now your enrollment split those two in the middle. Now you're at 150 or whatever.
Okay.
So schools move up and down. It's not static because other schools around you may be adding or dropping.
Right.
The unique part of this alignment is going to be vouchers come in 26, 27.
Right.
So we're aligning in 25 with an unknown enrollment for 26, 27.
Right.
So some schools may get vouchers and grow, and some may not. So we just kind of figure out how that goes. I've always said it, there's 5 really happy people that they're the largest in 1 through 5A, and then there's some really sad people that you're the smallest in 2A through 6A.
Yeah.
But we do it on enrollment. The board and the AEC align without knowing who the schools are.
Right.
So it's a numbers game. and then you try to make it play out. But alignment is big for every school.
Yeah.
If you get into a district with the Fort Worth rivalries that we've had,
absolutely,
and you can hold your own, then hallelujah, and the rivalries are great.
Right.
If you get into a district where you're the little dog and now you're getting beat, that alignment is not as fun.
No, it's not.
But it's 2 years and you go forward. So.
Absolutely. Shout out for putting Grapevine Faith back in that Fort Worth district. That means a lot for the rivalries back in the day when I was playing. You talked about vouchers, and I totally forgot that that's really in the news recently. From a TAPPS perspective, how are you preparing for it, and how did everything that comes with that?
I think the big thing is understanding what the vouchers will be, how they will be consumed. Is it a company? Is it a transfer? How does it look? But really, if it's 100, the number you hear is 100,000.
Right.
Spread across this whole big state. Well, this state's 800 miles from Beaumont to El Paso and 800 miles from Amarillo to Brownsville.
Right.
So when you think about it, how many is each school really going to get?
Right.
And then there are, because it's socioeconomically, like a family of four could have up to 160,000 income.
Right.
There's going to be people that are not poverty level people, but normal, a working middle class family.
Right.
So the question begins, who gets the voucher? And then the other question is, where do they want to go?
Right.
And so do you want to go to a church-based school, an independent school? And the other side of that from the school, which we would have no say over, is does the school even want to take them?
Right.
So it's unique.
It is. It's a whole interesting thing.
The interesting thing is, are you going to have more in Lubbock and Amarillo,
right.
Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, Austin? Are you going to have more in the Valley?
Yeah. The small towns here and there. Yeah.
We've all driven out to Midland or Lubbock at some point in our life.
Right.
You're going to pass a lot of towns that don't have a private school.
Right.
So I just want us to know more about, we're researching that, too. How is it actually going to come into play? And then once it comes into play, what does that look like?
Right. Another thing recently was in the news with Abbott just signed the new NIL thing that is for more college than anything for high school level, right? Where I've done a little bit of research on it. And it seems just like I kind of see it as kind of just signing a rookie contract before you go to college level, which doesn't affect the high school level. But with how trends are going right now, how do you see TAPPS preparing NIL if that ever comes to pass in the high school level?
So the high school organizations that have NIL, I think to a man would be not a fan.
Yeah.
So the other thing about monetizing high school athletics is you're telling a 14-year-old this is your job, not your passion, not growth.
Right.
It also would extremely accentuate the individual as opposing to accentuating team.
Right.
So I was a tennis player, and obviously if you're a tennis player, it is about the individual.
Right.
If you're playing team tennis, it's obviously about, I've got 9 other guys or gals with me, to make that work. I think that the hard part is going to be who gets NIL, what does that look like, what does the parameter look like. I cannot fault anyone, our young man that went from Carroll to out of state and then went to
Mr.
Texas
Ewers.
and now in the NFL.
Yep.
So when you look at that and you say, I couldn't fault anybody if they offered me $1 million to go.
Right.
You're watching Texas Tech in the softball World Series.
That one
with
pitcher.
a pitcher that came for, I don't know. There's other things that she came for, but one of the big targets has to have been
the biggest. I think it's the biggest deal in softball.
Biggest deal in
and
softball.
you see how the success they've had with her now.
I think the college concern right now is that if they allow the collectives and they allow direct payments back to whatever.
Right.
So when you look at the UIL and TAPPS, we want an equal playing field.
Yeah.
I can't tell you who to take into school. I can tell you who can play.
Yeah.
That's what our bylaws are derived to do.
Right.
So my concern is how would NIL screw the structure into different walls?
Yeah.
So you're going to have some schools that would never think of NIL. Mm-hmm. You have some schools whose curriculum, like our classic model schools, really don't need, because they require 4 years of Latin and whatever it is, may not even allow it.
That's
you have some of our university model schools, especially in Dallas Fort Worth, they go 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Now NIL combined with that scheduling, that might be a whole different way of looking at how you go. So
100%.
I think NIL has got some potential. I would hope that before it gets to Texas high school level, if it ever does and when it ever does, that the NCAA will have done a much better job of figuring it out.
Yeah.
You don't talk to anybody in the NCAA that feels comfortable.
No, absolutely not. And you see, I think that Abbott signed that law more of just like, I think changes are coming and just kind of being ready for that. And kind of, do you think TAPPS is going to be, I know I'm not going to say like you confirm or anything, but like if that ever comes to pass, do you think you're going to look at it more of a positive view or more negative view, or just see how it is?
I think you got to look at it school by school.
Yeah.
So if you're going to tell me that I'm going to give you NIL money to come play a sport,
yeah,
am I still willing to give NIL money for them to come do fine arts?
Right. That's a good point.
Am I willing to take that same NIL standpoint and say, hey, socioeconomically, you cannot afford to be here, but we're the right home for you?
Right.
Meaning, if you're going to give money for sport, why aren't you giving money for financial aid?
Right.
So I take a little, not pessimistic view, but I look from an altruistic view and say, if I were the head of school, I'd say, well, you know what? We're going to have some NIL money and we're going to open ourselves up to it. But, part of that is we also want to grow our endowment or grow our financial aid packages. We want to be a well-rounded school just like we want well-rounded students.
A school is a school. It's not just football. It's every other sport and every other fine arts, dance, plays, everything. Kind of going to that topic, we've had a lot of trends in high school sports here and there. What do you think is like on beyond in the next next cycle, next 4 years that you're as TAPPS you're kind of looking for and kind of preparing for?
I think the biggest thing you got to look at in all of sports is technology.
Yeah.
So you've got wearable technologies that are going to track how fast you run, how whatever. In baseball, you've got the wrist monitor where your wrists are. You've got the bat chip that's going to monitor that. They can put a chip in a football and check your spiral rate and do whatever.
Right.
Everybody laughed at Oakland back in the day when it was the A's and Moneyball.
Yeah.
But because we have more analytics, it's more and more and more.
Right.
My concern as we go that is how does that change the sport itself?
Right. 100%.
So is it more important to me to have a trainer that's really going to do the analytics and whatever and make me better at all these things, or is it going to be better for me to be with my team? So we're getting ready to do 7-on-7 if y'all make it down, 7-on-7, 6-on-6. But when you look at that, that's team building. When you look at that, to me, that's me getting better with the cats I'm going to play with, learning nuances. And if I'm a freshman, learning my coach.
Right.
My coach yells a lot. But, when he yells, it's always positive.
Yeah, it's teaching you.
I hear somebody raising their voice, I'm ducking and waiting to get hit. Instead, he's going, great job, or way to line up, or
Let's
whatever.
Go.
So, but 7-on-7 has now become kind of its own AAU club clique, and they go across the nation. What I hope that within TAPPS is that it's still a bastion for high school interscholastic sports.
Yes.
It's a place for you to learn how to fail. In the Army, Navy, and whatever, prior to my age, and even I'm 64, you had everybody that went into the service. One of the things is to break you down and build you back up and teach the value of team. I don't know that we get that anywhere. So, my mom and dad always said a failure is a learning opportunity.
Right.
So when I crashed the car, it was like, what did you do wrong?
Right.
I had to pay for it, but they didn't come get mad.
Right.
If I had a tough grade in a class, it was, do I need to get you more help?
Right.
I think now the fear I have is with the potential for NIL, the combines, the technology, are we going to put so much emphasis on that we forget the true value of interscholastic activities?
100%.
One of the greatest things I saw this year, and I get emotional, but I'll say it this way.
Go ahead.
We had the number 2 tennis player and the number 1 seed, unfortunately due to the bracketing, played each other in the semifinal round. Probably should have been the championship, but whoever won that was going to win the next round.
Right.
The number 1 seed got upset, got beat, handily, 6-2, 6-2.
Wow.
So that's a pretty big drubbing. The number 1 seed, instead of pouting or throwing a racket or whatever, the other girl shook hands and was walking off, and she called her back, and she asked to pray for her for the next round or whatever. That's what TAPPS is about.
Right.
So I worry sometimes, to your point, the outside world is going to come into the competing with honor, and we forget what that – but, if you think of everything you've done in your life, and this is especially true with me on a computer, when you hit enter, that computer does exactly what you just told it to do.
Right.
How many times has that been the exact wrong thing that you didn't want to do,
Too many
and
times.
you lose 5 days of work, right?
Yeah, too many times.
So I want it to be, but I learned.
Right. Yeah.
I learned to hit Control S, and that way I have a backup.
Right.
So our website right now is sitting in October of 2024 because the virus corrupted all the way back through October.
Wow.
That was the first time we were able to find and get a clean slate. So, again, I learned that I failed. but we're going to be better when we build the new website.
Yep.
So I just think high school athletics and interscholastic competition in general gives you a chance to succeed when you can, fail when you can't. But the biggest thing is, at the end of the day, shake hands with your brothers and sisters that walked with you.
Yeah.
And know that your coach is cared. So which coach means more?
Yeah.
I mean, you've talked to a lot of people here today. Is it Coach Black? Is it Coach Wheeler? You know, who is the guy? Or Coach Harrison? Mm-hmm. Or Coach Salas? They're making great impacts in your life. Or is it the strength and conditioning guy you go to 3 days a week?
Yeah.
To make you bigger, stronger, faster. So
like we always say, I think like private school in general and TAPS specifically is like, it's fun because on Friday nights, for example, you have that small town feel, even if you're in the middle of the metroplex, right? Like you have the community to come together, and that's one of the coolest things about it, because the schools are smaller and you have such a bigger impact, and I think that's one of the best things about it. One last question: do you have a fun memory from last year's sports section? I remember, for me personally, was the mariachi band that Holy Cross brought out for pregame for the state championship, and that was a lot of fun seeing them out there. Do you have a memory from any sport that was a lot of fun last year?
Well, take that same mariachi band that came to band and played 3 different songs and had 3 different singers, and I'm in a hotel, convention center. You thought it was loud out there?
Oh, I bet.
I'm going to tell you, it was loud down there. It was really good. I will say some of the fond memories I have in volleyball have been the competitive nature of teams that probably knew they weren't going to win.
Yeah.
But played to 2025, 2025, 2025, and just really did it. I will say in basketball, I'm a tall dude.
Right.
I love to see the dunks or whatever. We saw some of the best defense
that is true
in the world in basketball this year.
And a game winner at the end of
game winner at the buzzer. And that was like, and didn't even know he made it.
Yeah.
Remember when his feet hit the ground, he was looking around like he was looking for the officials. He knew it went in, but he had no clue whether it was in time or not. And then they got together. Softball, it was really unique. We had a major comeback, so we had a walk-off triple to win it. And the wind just kept blowing it out. The girl got her glove on it. But I say that to say they fought. We had 2 or 3 where they fought back from 6 or 7 runs.
Wow. Or
4 or 5 runs to come back. So the biggest thing for me, as far as positive, fond memories, in swimming and in track, if you jump a half inch farther or a half a second faster and you set a PR, I can honestly tell you you've done something you've never done in your life before.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique.
That is a lot of fun.
That's pretty unique. I'm going to tell you the fondest memory I have, the cat from Liberty that was hurdling in the 100s and the 300s.
Yeah.
That boy was clicking. The young man Ethan,
the
young man Ethan that ran the 3200 from Valor to run an 8:55 with nobody around you, and the only thing you've got is the clock in your head.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I'm not saying this is a negative, but what a human metronome. I mean, just to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, the joy that I see in victory is not selfish joy. And for me, being an old guy, I'm a grandparent, I'm 64 years old, but seeing that it still matters to a younger generation, even in the Me First social media world, I've also been very impressed with our school's increase in social media.
It has been. It's been really cool.
I think Gipper or whoever it is gives you an opportunity to be better.
Yeah.
But I've seen them focusing on team.
Yeah.
And not just, hey, so-and-so had 200 yards, but somebody had that. So, and I think we've had, overall, we had great championships. The Lord blessed us with great weather.
Very true.
For most of them, even though we had rain at track, it didn't last forever.
Nope.
We didn't have snow at football. So that was a good thing as well. Some of the soccer stuff was just phenomenal. Thank you to, Round Rock for providing us a great soccer facility. So, again, the other side of that is we're promoting high school athletics. We're promoting TAP schools, and I think we're a value add for every stakeholder in those schools.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great way to end it. Always thank you for everything. I guess we'll see you in Waco in a couple of weeks for 7-on-7 and probably in the fall, man, but always a pleasure, man.
Bring the water. Appreciate you.
Always a pleasure.